Welcome back. Now, Millie Mackintosh rose to fame when she joined the iconic cast of Made in Chelsea at just 21 years of age.
As a self-confessed former party girl, Millie has been open about her journey to sobriety after years of problem drinking. And she joins us now to discuss her new book. Welcome, Millie. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. I was really enjoying your egg jokes before, by the way.
I'm really embarrassed about that.
She's got to slide them in throughout it now, Millie. She's got to slide them in.
That's embarrassing.
Exquisite.
That's a nice one.
Go on.
Let's get right into the book. It's called Bad Drunk. And you talk about the early days of Made in Chelsea. And, you know, you and the whole cohort, really, the whole cast, kind of portrayed as these party girls and, you know, clinking of champagne glasses. It was so aspirational. How much of that was constructed? Because we know it as constructed reality, but how much was constructed, or how much just was Millie at 21 living that lifestyle in Chelsea?
The one part that wasn't particularly real was that I actually lived in Fulham, not in Chelsea at the time. So I would often get the bus and then they'd film me getting out of a Bentley. But the drinking and going to lots of parties, that was very much me at that age. I was hungover more often than not. I was going out most nights of the week and yeah, getting very drunk. Not always when the cameras were there, but definitely it was a big part of my, oh God, like that clip, it was a big part of my life.
But Millie,
I was the party girl.
For 21-year-olds, they'll kind of get that. That's why it was so successful. We were seeing ourselves reflected in a very posh way, you know, probably a little bit more than we'd have. But did being on that show and it being such a big hit make the drinking off camera? Did it make it worse?
Definitely. I would use alcohol to self-medicate with the uncomfortable anxiety I was feeling. And as the show grew and as I started getting recognised more and it became more successful, my anxiety was also getting worse. And so I was drinking more to cope. And I didn't realise it was an issue because it's so normalised to drink, especially in your 20s and in the social circle I was in. Drinking and drinking a lot was very normal as part of what we did.
I was telling you, I've been listening to your... It's weird hearing you live because I've been listening to your audiobook over the past week since the book came out. And you're so honest about your first marriage as well, how you got married so young. You know, the tabloids loved who you married. You were exposed to, you know, new people in the music industry. And again, it sort of all facilitated these bad habits really for you, didn't it?
Yeah, looking back now with hindsight, I was in a very fragile state, and I kind of felt that I'd had enough on Made in Chelsea and I felt like I wanted to run away, but I wasn't dealing with any of my problems. And it's a very blurry part of my life when I think back because I was drinking so much I actually can't remember large chunks of it, but there was a lot of partying and a lot of hangovers, and the marriage breaking down publicly was very difficult. And again, I dealt with all of that by drinking.
But I can't imagine having to do this in the public eye, because obviously when you got with your now husband, you'd kind of gotten back together again. And you talk about in the book when you realised that, OK, we're going public with this. You were at a Grand Prix and again, you had to self-medicate.
And when the more anxious I was, when I was drinking, I was more likely to take it too far because I was drinking more and more to not feel the feelings. And that would often lead to me being, you know, paralytically drunk or passing out or just acting in a way that I would feel so ashamed of the next day. And that shame just fed back into the horrible feelings that I was experiencing and led me to drink more and more. So it was a really toxic cycle.
Fast forwarding a little bit, you and Hugo get married. You've this beautiful wedding. You're blessed with two gorgeous girls, you know, in quite quick succession. And then, which I thought was really interesting, is that the habits of, you know, having a drink to make yourself feel better on a red carpet event so you don't feel as nervous going into big events. It goes from being sort of that social crutch to almost what has now been so normalised and fetishized as that wine o'clock drink. That I've had the kids all day by myself, you get them down at 7, half 7, and by 8 o'clock, you've got a glass of wine in your hand. And that really hasn't been very helpful to a lot of mothers, has it, Millie?
I get so many messages from women, but particularly from mums. Ever since I started talking about my alcohol-free journey 2.5 years ago, I've had so many of these messages, and it's definitely a lot of mums who really struggle with that, being on their own with their kids, like you said, and then feeling like they need that release, and it's the only way they can feel they can unwind from the day and deal with the stress of being a parent, particularly to young children. And it's incredibly common, and it's something that people just feel so uncomfortable talking about, and that's why I wanted to do the book.
And do you know what you're really good at as well? You're like, don't feel bad about yourself if you can't stop it too. It is addictive, alcohol. So don't feel bad that it's not your willpower that is to blame or your discipline. The alcohol is making you want more. So for anyone thinking of buying your book, reading your book, it's not preachy. And that's what you kind of say that from the very start. It's like, I've been sober 2 years. I haven't drank in 2 years, but maybe one day I will. I don't feel like it right now, but it almost feels like, look, it's okay. You don't have to be like, it's this or it's this, you know? So was that important to you when you were approaching the book, that you had to kind of go, I need to draw in as many people here and not put off anyone who goes, either I'm this or I'm either drinking alcohol or I'm living without it in my life?
Absolutely. It's a book really for anyone who's sober curious, who wants to change their relationship with alcohol. You know, alcohol doesn't have the same effect on everyone. Everyone's experience with it is going to be very different. But I think for a lot of people, they're in this grey area where you are not necessarily dependent on alcohol on a daily basis, but you don't like who you become when you drink it, and you frequently binge drink, and you frequently really regret it and hate how you feel when you're hungover and hate how it's affecting your happiness.
What was your tipping point, Millie, to make you go, I'm done with this?
My tipping point was that my mental health was really struggling, and I was having a lot of panic attacks, a lot of anxiety. I went to one wedding that was just a real disaster. I completely lost control, and I just felt so low afterwards, and it was really affecting my marriage at that point. And I had a really big panic attack which was very scary. And I just after that day, I said, enough now, I'm done.
Well, can I ask you what you make of the term? Because I hear these all the time. I mean, there's dry January all the time, and people going, oh, I don't like who I am with alcohol. What do you make of the term? Because you're sober now. What do you make of the term alcoholic? And do you think that there's different umbrellas now?
I think it's really outdated, and we need some new terminology. I think people have this idea of what a drinking problem is, and it's not necessarily somebody that's drinking vodka with their breakfast every morning. It's people that are stuck also in this middle ground where they keep abusing alcohol and have a disordered relationship with it and don't know how to stop because there's so much societal pressure. But also I think there are labels, and I don't like to be tied down with a label. I don't think I was an alcoholic, but when I read through the book, I definitely I have addictive tendencies when it comes to alcohol. So I don't think it's actually safe for me to ever drink alcohol, because I just always, if I have one, I always want more. I don't think that would ever not be the case. So I'm not getting tied down with labels. I think it's so different for everyone, but it's all about being kind to yourself and forgiving yourself.
And how is family life now that the girls are a little bit older? You're kind of out of the trenches. How is family life with Hugo and the girls?
Oh, they're just heaven. I love that I can have proper chats with them. They're like my little best friends. It's also quite full on sometimes because they're very strong personalities. We've now got a dog as well, and Hugo is just, he's like constantly cleaning up after me, the girls, and the dog.
I hope it's a different type of cleaning for everyone, Millie. I'm going to be honest. The dog cleaning better be a little bit different.
Yes.
Come here. The book is called Bad Drunk. You have written this with Dr. Ellie as well, which is incredibly interesting. I know you found it really interesting, Karen, the way the
exactly.
doctor
Kind of
came
talking
in.
about how your body feels after 24 hours, 72 hours, a week, a month. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy and take something from it, Millie.
Yeah, Millie Mackintosh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks a million. Cheers.
Millie.